Your
Nice.
situation's set up. Your cat's doing good. I see her crawling
Yeah,
around
yeah. She's been really like craving attention recently, like more than usual. It's kind of
more than
like she's been
usual.
all up in my shit. I don't know what's going on. I think it's just the old age. It's getting to her.
What's that cat's name?
So fun little tidbit for the pod. Her original name is Lev, which is short for Levis, which is lioness in Czechoslovakian, which is my native, not my native language, but my heritage.
It's
But
your OG stomping
I
grounds.
brought her to college, and at some point during college, somebody called her Kittis, Kittis. And what happened was everybody started calling her Kittis and wouldn't call her Lev. And so now I call her Kittis. Everybody calls her Kittis, but her government name is Lev. So when I take her to the vet, it's Lev, but any other time it's Kittis. So she's got a little bit
Gotcha.
of an identity crisis going on,
And you had her. How old is she? You've had her for a long time, right?
She's like almost 15.
Okay, all right, let me tell you a little fun tidbit about me and Lev. Okay, so the first and probably only time I've ever taken Adderall, me, your sister, and just the crew of people all went out to, I don't think it was Aqua at the time in Birmingham.
Nice.
And yeah, so me and a buddy, he's like, let's try this Adderall. We're 19, never taken anything like that. So take it. Of course, the night is just crazy, but like I can't go to sleep, and we're at your house, and I think me and Lev just kicked it all night long, just
Yeah,
chilling. Like I
probably.
remember, I was just
That
up
sounds
and like
right.
nothing to do, and she just comes waltzing in the room, and it's like, all right, well, we're just gonna kick it. So
Yeah, we're just
me
gonna
and Lev had
post
a good
up.
time that back then.
Very
Yeah.
nice, very nice.
Yep.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome or welcome back. It's Totally Biased Music. It's Blake and Anthony. Today we are. Oh, I didn't pull up a. Let me pull up an Apple Music intro real quick. Today we're gonna review Insano by Kid Cudi. And here's the thing, man. We're gonna talk a lot about this album, but I just want to say Insano is a really dumb name, and I hate it, and I hate saying it. I think it's childish, and I don't like it. But the Apple Music intro states, for a time, Kid Cudi was bracing for the worst. Back in 2022, the renowned artist, whose discography touches everything from hip hop and R&B to alt rock and beyond, made some statements suggesting a retirement from music. The award-winning animated feature Intergalactic and its corresponding soundtrack didn't quite seem like the last we'd heard from the chosen one, yet its success indicated that his creative pursuits were ever expanding. While there's no definitive statement indicating that his ninth album, would close out his catalog, its scope and sound certainly make it feel like the end of an era for one of the most compelling musical artists of our time. So I like that because I want to talk obviously about Insano. I picked Insano, and I gotta say, man, I don't know your relationship with Cuddy. My relationship with Cuddy, Man on the Moon 2, was and still is arguably one of my favorite albums of all time. I think it's like as close to a perfect hip hop album as you can get for his style of hip hop music, and that album will always hold a special place in my heart. Kid Cudi will always hold a special place in my heart for that album. Man on the Moon 1, I think, has aged pretty terribly. I really enjoyed it when I was listening to it back when I was 15. I think now going back and listening to it, it's a little too MySpacey for me. But he has created great music, and Man on the Moon 1, 2, and 3. I mean, even Man on the Moon 3 is fantastic. Indica, I really love. His Wizard project, I thought was great. But there have been a lot of Kid Cudi moments, a lot of Kid Cudi projects that I did not enjoy, that did not sit with me well. And I think, unfortunately, Cudi started as a humble, understanding, nice guy and has devolved into kind of a douchebag. His online persona, he acts like a total dick on Twitter constantly. He's always bitching and moaning. So it's hard for me. I'm in a weird spot with Cuddy right now in my life. I like a lot of his music, but I don't know. I'm just at kind of a weird point. But I enjoyed Insano, and we'll get into it more a little bit here. I didn't enjoy Intergalactic. I thought the film was sick, and I think we should do that film at some point and talk more
Yeah.
about it. But how did you feel about Insano, and kind of where are you on the Cuddy train?
So I'm so glad to hear just how much you have to say, because I can tell, he's made an impact on your life, and same thing here. I like to consider I was the man on the moon back then. Like Kitty
Yeah,
or Kid Cudi was like my muse when when I needed him mostly, right? So like I
Mm-hmm.
was 17, 18 in high school, still not sure who I was, and discovered his music organically. I think through MySpace, that you say that. That was like his big outlet. And listening to those albums, I can't wait to bring those to the podcast, because the way you resonate with Man on the Moon 2 is Man on the Moon, the OG is my album. And this was such a fun last week when you mentioned that we were going to do this album. I got so fucking excited because I hadn't dove into Cudi's world in such a long time. And that's, I think, the best way to try to describe his music to somebody is that it is like another place to me. And so listening to Insano, then I went back and listened to all the man. I've been in Cudi land for like the past 5 days.
Nice.
I listened to all the Man on the Moons. I'm in the middle of Intergalactic. I'm going to finish it. Hold on one second. You back? Let's see. Technical difficulties, people. Now it's just me doing a solo cast. So I will share the details with everybody on my Cudi experience as soon as we get Blake back. But
Can you
let's see. Here he is.
can you
He's
hear
back.
me?
Yep.
It 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 kicked me out, and I think it fucked up the recording. So I might have to release this as an audio version because I think it just split the two recordings. I don't know. I'll have to check after this. Anyway,
Gotcha.
continue with
Okay.
your Cudi experience.
All right. So Blake's back. Yeah. But yeah. So the past few days, I've just been so excited to go backwards in time and kind of learn more and more about him, and also listening to it through an adult mind, right? I mentioned I'm halfway through Intergalactic, and I can't wait to finish it tonight. I watched a documentary on Amazon Prime called A Man Named Scott, and that was extremely eye opening because Cudi, I've not had this conversation that we're about to have with anybody really in my life. I haven't found somebody that resonated with his music the way that I do, but watching that documentary really validated all the feelings that I've had, from Man on the Moon to now. And, admittedly, I stopped after Man in the Moon 2 and just, dove into different areas of music and really haven't listened to his other, The Wizard Project, and a couple of the other albums that are whole different vibes. Right. But,
Yeah.
But this definitely, gave me flashbacks to Man on the Moon. So I'm excited to talk about it. Like I said, Cudi is a huge influence on me musically. He's a left field hip hop artist. I found it so interesting in the doc that explained how I guess he wrote the opening line in Heartless with Kanye.
Yeah.
The intro where it's like, in the night I hear him talk.
Yeah.
The story. That's Cudi, and that blew my mind. If that's true, I mean, that's what he said on the doc. That's what Kanye said on the doc. But then also hearing that he touched the Blueprint 3 before Man on the Moon came out. So like to hear people like Jay-Z and Kanye just basically take this young artist from Cleveland who moved to Brooklyn and get him right in the scene that quickly was so wild. But then also to see how Cudi purposely wanted to detach himself from a big figure like Kanye so he could do his own thing wholeheartedly. And I totally respect that as an artist. And I think that's the way to perceive these albums is pieces of art. Same with Intergalactic, the animated film. It's a piece of art, and it's going to resonate with some people. It's going to throw some people off, but either way, it's there. And I think it's so cool for people to be able to take it in however they want to. So this is going to be. I'm really excited for this combo. So
yeah, and I think like it's cool. The Kid Cudi Kanye parallels are really, really similar to Kanye and Jay-Z's influence on each other and how they have worked together, right? Like Jay-Z, Kanye produced a ton of classic Jay-Z songs, and Jay-Z really took him under his wing, and then Kanye became his own entity and his own artist, and to a monumental scale. He's nothing like Jay-Z, and I don't think Kid Cudi is really anything like Kanye. I think they have a
Right.
very different. You can tell their influences there, and he has obviously written a lot for Kanye, and he's helped him produce tracks, and he's written hooks and choruses and verses and lines for Kanye. But I think that, the way that Jay-Z treated Kanye is very similar to the way that Kanye treated Kid Cudi. And I think he viewed him as kind of that version of himself. And it was interesting to see just how his career took off. And like you said, what Cudi did at that time around Man on the Moon 1 and Man on the Moon 2 was a lot like 808s and Heartbreak, in the sense that people weren't really rapping about the stuff that Kid Cudi was rapping about. They weren't really making
Right.
music the way that Kid Cudi made music, and it was a very psychedelic hip hop sound. And he talked about, you said you listened to about a time where you really kind of needed influence and were finding yourself. And I think that's how a lot of kids our age were. Like, that's something that drew me so heavily to Kid Cudi when I was young, and I was going through a lot emotionally. And, as corny as it sounds now, looking back on it, to me at that time, it was really important to hear an artist that I loved kind of have similar mental things that they were going through. And I think
Right.
that's why so many people now still hang on to Cudi through everything that he's done. He's changed a lot. His music has changed a lot, and there's some great projects. There are some bad projects, but people want to stick
Right.
with him because it's Cudi and they have this connection to him. And I think that speaks a lot for him. And it was interesting, him and Kanye. I'm so tired of the Kid Cudi Kanye saga, because they're constantly at each other's throats, and they hate each other this week, and then they love each other this week. But he said it in an interview with Zane Lowe recently, before Insano came out, and he was basically like, Kanye reached out to me and he apologized, and it seemed genuine, and Kanye doesn't apologize to people. And he was basically like, and it's Kanye and Cudi, man. Like, it's a
Right.
duo that people love to hear and see. And like, I don't know if you listen to Kids See Ghosts, their duo album, but Kids See Ghosts is phenomenal, and it's just the best version of them two together. And we should have brought that onto the pod, man. I didn't know you
We
had
got
to
time.
like
We got time.
listen to it and caught up to it, but like, you need to, since you're on the Cudi kick, you need to listen to
Yeah.
Kids See Ghosts, because it really just brings out the best. They bring out the best in each other, and so it's just nice to see that he's still around for better or worse, however people may view that.
Right. Yeah, and you got a rapper that is, or an artist who is rapping about things like paranoia, and things like trauma and being up at night, and like it is such a relatable thing, because inevitably people are going through shit, right? And to have an artist like this that is willing to express himself and put himself out there was it's such an interesting trajectory for a career, because when you open up with an album like Man on the Moon, which is dark and very vulnerable, you're putting yourself out there. And then when you become successful off of that, right, it's hard to figure out which way to go. I think Mac Miller is another artist like that, where people like resonate with him wholeheartedly. And when you say things like, you've saved my life, or your music has saved my life, or you've really done it, you had a huge impression on me, I can't imagine that type of pressure that you're under.
Right.
And in the documentary on Amazon Prime, he talks about the transition from Man on the Moon 1 to 2, and how Man on the Moon 1 was such a organic kind of process, and Man on the Moon 2 was so influenced, he legit says, by cocaine, which I found so interesting too, because like musically I never recognized it from an album standpoint, but just from the shit he was going through, I mean, it's a crazy position to be in, to be on that pedestal after album 1. But I'm really, you're proud of a guy like him who's gone through so much, who openly admitted he was going to rehab, and had an artist like Kanye, taking time out of his show to address it, and to send well wishes, at least back then, right? And like I said, they're all going to go through their shit. They're both obnoxious on Twitter, I'm sure, right?
Yeah,
they're like each other in that sense, right? But either way, to come out clean on the other side with just another piece of art, it's really interesting. And there's some tracks in here, like you can read the lyrics and figure out how much of a different lens he's coming through with this album, and even Intergalactic also. There's points where it seems more hopeful and more optimistic, and more, I've found peace, putting it out there.
Yeah.
It's such a humbling thing to see that. And again, so proud of him. And honestly, it's like I said, it's an artist, so I can't wait to see what it comes out with. I doubt somebody like him would just stop. You can't
Yeah.
stop. They just find other
No,
ways to be
100%.
creative.
Yeah. So getting into Insano, I think that I'm interested. I'm really interested to hear what you had to say about it, because Insano is very, to me, modern hip hop. It's very trap heavy at times.
Right.
When I first listened to it, I told people it's Cudi's version of Travis Scott and Playboy Cardi, which I still believe that's what it is. It's very
Yeah.
very much that type of influence, and I feel like he's trying to, but like I think it's music that Cudi wants to make. Like I don't think he's doing it just to try to appeal to a certain group of people, but it is very very much a departure. It was great to see DJ Drama throughout
Yeah.
the know that he has influence. DJ Drama did all the dedications for Lil Wayne, and those are fucking classic mixtapes, and so I thought
Mhm.
them linking up was really fucking cool. I'm gonna get into my top tracks. I have a few more
Yeah.
than three, but
Okay.
I
Do
want
you
to
have
start with
21? No.
not quite, not
Yeah,
quite.
right.
I have, so the first one I have Electro Wave Baby, which to me I put it on here because it's one of the, I mean, it's this whole album is really upbeat, but this is like an upbeat like classic Cudi song to me. That's what it feels like. It feels like, to me it really reminds me of Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying, that album, which I really love. I love that album a lot, and it has a very similar sound to Electro Wave Baby, and so I thought it was nice to have that on here. It kind of a departure from like the trap beats that he had, and
Right.
I really really enjoyed it. My next one is Wow with ASAP Rocky. So the hook is
Wow,
fucking
wow, wow,
great, man.
wow.
Yeah, it's just like such a like a head bopping, like bounce around song to me, and ASAP kills it, man. I haven't heard enough ASAP Rocky recently, and it's great to hear him on a song always. And so I really, really love that song. And then Mr. Coola. So Mr. Coola, to me, I wrote down riding through the city late at night, like windows down, you're about to go get into some debauchery. This is what I would put on if I were on my way to go do that. Like I just love the vibe of this song. It's hard, and it just, I don't know, it hits a chord with me that I really really enjoy.
Did you on this track? Hold on, I want to stop you because on that track specifically, did you feel that there was the sample from the Halloween movies? I wrote down
I
Halloween
didn't
samples,
notice
so
that.
like
Oh,
listen
at the
back,
beginning, right? It
it
kind of sounds
sounds
like
like
that.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, like a
I didn't
slowed
dig.
version of it.
I would be interested to know if that sample has that, but it also adds to your kind of debauchery
Yeah.
nightcap, right?
You're like,
So
I'm about to get into something,
it's
man. I
about
don't
to
know
get
what it
dark.
is, but it's about to
Yeah.
be something. And then honorable mention, I had two for honorable mention. So I had 7 with Wayne. My problem with this song is Wayne's verse is like 20 seconds long. I
It's
don't
too
know what
short.
I don't know what the fuck the deal is with that, man. It's like he's there and then he's gone. I mean, I think he's great on it and I really like the song, but you know me, I need more Lil Wayne in
Yeah,
my
I
life,
get it.
dude.
I get it.
So it was, but I do enjoy that. And then the last one, which I'm interested to hear your take on this, "Get Off Me" with Travis Scott.
Ooh.
So Travis Scott and Cudi have a duo called the Scots, and they have another song together. And so I just wrote down the Scots, baby. It's Travis Scott and Kid Cudi, and I love when they get together. I love when they link up. There was rumors that they're going to make a whole album. I would really, really like that to happen.
Yeah.
But I know you listened to the Utopia episode, but Travis Scott, the Scott in his name comes from Kid Cudi. He's a massive Kid Cudi fan, and
Oh
so the
wow.
Scott came from Scott Muscudi, and so I don't know them linking up. I love their sound together. Obviously, a huge Travis Scott fan, huge Kid Cudi fan, so that's got to be honorable mention for me. So a little bit longer than usual, but there's a lot of what I will say about this album is like, and we'll get more into it when we get to bottom tracks. Like, there's a lot of good songs in this album. Like, to me, the good songs are fucking great, but the bad songs are really fucking bad to me. And so it's just those really high heights and those really low lows that he takes you on. So I enjoyed a lot of it.
I
But what
hear
about
that.
you?
Well, I'll say you'll hear me probably talk about "Get Off Me" maybe in the next segment. But
Oh yeah,
my favorite thing about Travis Scott is now hearing that namesake. I'm glad you brought that up. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah,
But yeah. So this album, I got that trap kind of vibe. There's things that I think artists will do now, which is kind of pull from pull from today's trends and then throw their filter through it, right? And I think that's what Cudi does. But there are some tracks I think that are undeniable. I'm gonna start 3 and go to number 1. Number 3, I have the intro track. Often I have these dreams. It really felt like flashbacks into Man on the Moon, and to hear DJ Drama come out, that was just like such a beautiful, like, just, nugget for people who get it, right? I mean, DJ Drama is an insanely recognizable voice, but you're right, from the dedications, from the Gangster Grills, where he would just kind of chime in throughout the album. I enjoyed that, and also I felt like it was just another like step into this zone that he's going to be creating through Insano. Number 2, I got Electro Wave Baby.
Nice.
What I wrote next to it was quintessential Cudi. Like it is 100%. Exactly what I would imagine a Cudi track would be, and it fits perfectly right in the middle of this album, and just love it. Just purple and blue. That is Cudi. There's no other way to put it, right?
Yep.
And then number 1 is second to last track, Blue Sky. Dude, I've listened to this track on replay. I listened to the album a few times, but like Blue Sky was so beautiful that I wanted to just kind of give you a gist of these lyrics, right? The sky is blue. I've been dreaming of this for a while. The sun is shining, swimming in this place of mine. We're all on a quest to climb and we're on our way. Like, these would not have been Cudi lyrics, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is just such a hopeful optimism way to close out this album that I was just so happy, and it's just like, I can't wait to listen to this song more, It was beautiful. So that's
that's very much like, what's funny is that song, when it first came out, when Insano first came out, I was texting Trey and Christian about it, and they were both like, Blue Sky is phenomenal. And they're right, it's a great song. And you're right, like, he's come a long way, like you said, this is not, you would never hear a song like this on Man on the Moon 2, which is so dark and so like depressing at times, while still being phenomenal. Like, he's not going to have a song like Blue Sky. So I think it is, a nod to his progression, not only as an artist, but as a person. I think he's in a happier place. At least I hope he is. I mean, that's what it seems like when you listen to something like this, and I think him being able to explore kind of the artistic vision that he wants to with things like this, with things like Intergalactic, it's given him a chance to kind of flourish in a different aspect, which I think is really cool. Mm-hmm. All right, so bottom tracks. So I had 3 bottom tracks, and my opinion of these songs is I basically have the same complaint for all of them, and it's that these songs are bad party trap music to me. It's like where Trap Cudi goes wrong, Trap Cudi goes right in a lot of places on this album. These songs are where Trap Cudi goes bad. So Most Ain't Dennis, I can't fucking stand. It's an immediate skip for me every time it comes up. Cud Life, I hate the fucking beat. There's zero substance to it. It's not. It's like he's just talking nonsense, man. It's like he's just trying to do trap music over a trap beat, and it's like, just give me some sort of point or something to fucking work with here that I can pull from these lyrics, and it's just not there. And then Freshie, so he does this like he does this vocal like distortion thing, which on 7 he does the vocal distortion, but it's really cool. Like he's done it before and it works, and in 7 it really works. It kind of has like that. Cudi has this vocal distortion that he uses that works on a lot of songs.
Right.
In Freshie, it just doesn't go with the fucking beats. It's just unenjoyable. It's shitty lyrics. Like, I can't stand the song. So that's my main gripe with all of them, is they're all kind of those 3 songs in particular are just, it's just bad trap music, man, and it doesn't work, and it feels I don't want to say it feels out of place, because that's kind of the vibe of this album, but like, nah, doesn't do it for me. So that's where I'm at with those.
Yeah, I get it, and that's, I mean, the trap beats I can get with, with the right vocals, but there are some songs on here that it gets annoying to me, So
yeah,
I'll go with so my third bottom track, I have Tale of a Night. or A Tale of a Night. And I love the concept of, you know, a tale within a album, right? And you got DJ Drama kind of chiming in on this track too, but it gets way too repetitive with the get 'em up, get 'em up, get 'em up, like
Yeah,
that. No,
yeah.
I'm out, right? I mean, I'm out with that.
Yeah.
Number 2 bottom track, I have Get You Gone. It just seems like he's trying to do UK rap, and I you know, Skepta came to mind, and then I did a little digging and saw he had some tracks with Skepta on, I think, a previous album or something.
Yep.
But it just didn't work for me. And the, you know, bottom track, worst track I feel on this album is Get Off Me.
Oh my God, bro.
I wrote slurred
the worst
vibe.
song on the album.
Too slurry, man. Bitch, get off me. You know, it did not do it for me, man. So, like I said, Travis Scott just didn't work. You know, if they do an album, you said they have not done an album together, correct?
No, they have a song that came out under the name The Scots. So they only have one track out. I'll send it to you. You see if you like it.
Yeah,
I think it'll be a similar opinion.
I mean, if that's the thing, you know. I mean, if it goes down that kind of slurry path with me, it just kind of it loses momentum, and that's like something that I felt this album. You know, it started off, you know, decently. I like Wow, you know, like that song really, I vibed with that. That almost made it into my top tracks, but yeah, halfway through it kind of just loses me within the trap and slurriness. It feels kind of forced, you know.
Yeah.
But it definitely saved me towards the end. Like
that's a fucking gut punch, man. That Get Off is, you think, is the worst song on the damn album. Like, it's just, you know what it is, Anthony? I can't wait to do Astro World and make you listen to a whole Travis Scott album. It's gonna be so good, dude.
I mean, just be careful what you wish for, you know. I mean, I'm trying to give you things to have a good time, but then you're coming back with things that you know is probably going to give me a bad time. So we'll see. We'll see where we find ourselves, right?
You never know.
Yeah, right?
I will say it's interesting that, so this is the last album on his Republic Records contract. So after this, I don't know what's going to happen to him, where he's going to go, if he'll do his own thing, if he'll sign to somebody else. Like, it'll be interesting to see. I think that, so it's funny, the reception of this album has not been positive. So Pitchfork gave it a 4.6 out of 10. And they said on his 9th studio album, The Man on the Moon has never sounded more checked out. And the last paragraph says, though he was far from the first rapper to do so, at his peak, Kid Cudi provided an outlet for emotional vulnerability and mental health awareness in the genre. For millennial and younger rap fans, his status as an alt-black kid who enjoyed indie rock as much as he did Bape and good music represented a fresh vision of mainstream celebrity. But he spent the years since 2013's Indica rehashing old ideas to the point of self-parody, when his new ideas aren't fizzling out in their own ways, creating overindulgent and sloppy albums that have soured much of the goodwill he's coasted on since 2009. He's hinted that he may be ready to retire from music at 40, and on the unfathomably boring Insano, which coincidentally represents the last album in his contract with Republic, it sounds like he already has one foot out the door. So I want to,
it's harsh.
Like, yeah, it's rough, and I obviously don't agree with that. How do you feel about him going from an album like Man on the Moon 2 or Man on the Moon 1 even to an album like this, like such a drastic departure? Does it feel like a step in the right direction or a step in the wrong direction?
Well, I mean, it's just a step, right? I mean, the idea of Man on the Moon to me, that might have been like the first true concept album that I was able to listen to front to back, you know, regularly. I mean, that was like my nighttime when I would be searching for music online for people late at night by myself. That's the music I was listening to, you know, with headphones on. And like, I think there's a certain way to digest Cudi's music, and it, you know, there may be house party tracks, but for me, it's never been that. Even listening to it out loud on my car speakers was like, it's just a whole different experience. But when you can zone in and go to that place, I think that's definitely details worth catching on. But to compare this to that, it's just not fair, because of how open Cudi has been and how like transparent I think he has been with his emotions. He's in different places every time he comes out with an album, but I think that it's just been a ride for him. But I love where he's landed with this, and I really can't wait to see whatever he does next. If he's going to be in another film, or if he's going to direct a film, who knows, right? But the dude's creative, and I think something that is also worth noting is that he's never given a fuck about the industry. I mean, as far as like from a success standpoint, or from a I need to conform standpoint, he's never been that. So, like I said, I don't really highlight. They're in different lanes, right? But I think this definitely pulls from those OG vibes in a few tracks. But he's also being contemporary, so he's checking a lot of boxes.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's interesting. So the Rolling Stone review, they don't give it a rating, but they say Kid Cudi's leaning into the chaos and getting lost in it. And they said he's one of modern rap's key architects, but his new album Insano is too unfocused for its own good, which is super strange to me because like you can say a lot about this album. I don't think that unfocused is a word that you can use. Right. Like to me, he very much picked a lane and tried to create music of that and stuck to it. So it doesn't feel unfocused. I think like maybe they're saying that his departure from his normal style is what's making it unfocused. But to me, like there's a very clear vision here. Whether it works for you or it doesn't is a different story. And there's a conversation to be had about that. But it doesn't come across as unfocused to me. It's just he has the lane that he wants to be in,
Yeah.
So,
and I think like I said, just with the success of the early albums, it's hard. You can't stay up there. You can't please everyone all the time. So like when you try something different, or definitely different from what to have been successful in the past, it's going to vibe with some and it's going to, not with others. And I think that just the mainstream, or I guess I would say like, the media, when it comes to music, they need things that are going to probably gravitate towards the most people. And this may not be that, but I think for Cudi fans, they're going to get down with this, maybe not all of it, but definitely, it's going to ring true in some form or fashion.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, it's funny, Man of the Moon 3, like, those Man on the Moon albums all feel so connected, right? And they all tell like a long, cohesive story, and they all have a lot of similarities. But it's interesting to see the departures from those in between them, right? Between Man on the Moon 2 and 3, there was Indica and Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying, and whatever his shitty grunge album is that I can't remember the name of. Like
Speed and Bullet,
he was
or something like that.
Yeah, Speed and Bullet to Heaven. But he still finds a way to bring it back. And I think like there doesn't need to be a Man on the Moon 4. I think it was a perfect trilogy, but it's cool to see that he can kind of depart from what he's used to and still come back to what made him Kid Cudi. And so I think that speaks volumes to who he is as an artist. But final rating. So I gotta say, I try not to look at albums in the context. I try to isolate them and look at them in the context of themselves, right? Which is really difficult for me, especially with an artist that I love so much. I'm giving it a 6.5, okay? Simply because, like I said, the good tracks are really good. The shitty tracks are really fucking shitty to me, and I don't enjoy them. And like, as much as I love hip-hop music, as much as I love trap music, like, I have to be in a certain mood to listen to this album. Whereas like Man on the Moon 2, anytime I have a hip hop playlist that I collaborate with a bunch of people on, it has like 2,500 hip hop songs on it. Anytime a Man on the Moon 2 track comes up on that, like I let it ride. I don't change it. I don't skip. I don't care what song it is. Like I will never get tired of that album. And I can't say the same for Insano. Like there's a time where like, even when I was going through it, getting ready for the pod, like there were times where I would get in the car and it was like, I don't really want to listen to this album right now. Not that it's bad. It's just I'm not in the mood for this type of music. And so I think that's kind of where I have it. Like it's still good. It's still enjoyable, but it's not ever going to rate up there with, the other albums that he's put out for me. So I think that's kind of the most indifferent centrist review I've ever given, but that's kind of where I'm at,
Yeah, no, I get it. some would say it's fair, right? But the idea I think with me rating this album was a lot on those lines too, because I hadn't listened to Man on the Moon 1 or 2 in a few years, and the way that I first listened to Insano was I chunked it up into 4 parts, based off of the vinyl. I think that's like it's become a really interesting way, I think, to take in albums, because I knew after listening to the first few tracks this wasn't going to feel like how Man on the Moon felt to me. It wasn't going to feel like an entire piece to be digested in one sitting. So doing that for me really helped me have I guess give this album a little more grace, because that's how I was going to take it in. And the opening tracks, often I Have These Dreams, Electro Wave Baby, At the Party, and then 7. Those tracks start each side, so that really helped too with my rating. But I also thought, okay, well, if I'm gonna rate this one, what would I rate the other ones? And then in comparison to that, it did, affect the rating a little bit. But I gave this one a 7. It had what I wanted out of Kid Cudi, and then it had some new stuff, or just some different takes that I thought were interesting. Some hit, some definitely missed big time. But the idea was I resonated with this in a way. And again, you close out an album with the track like Blue Sky, it leaves a lingering feeling to me. And something that I also found was, I listen to music at night typically, and I wake up with songs in my head. And, Blue Sky has been on repeat in my head after the fact. And I think that really, a track can influence an album for me. And that one, like I said, really made a big deal. So 7 out of 10 for me. Not the best, but there's so much more Cudi to come in the future, especially on the podcast. So we'll go down that road.
That's
Maybe
definitely fair.
Friends with us too.
For sure. All right, well, that was Insano. Give it a listen. Give it a rinse if you haven't. Let's get into Rides or Dies. Let's intro your track first. Yeah. I think it's a good transition.
Yeah, so this track that we're not going to listen to, but we'll talk about it. But it is an unreleased Cudi track. It's called Dose of Dopeness. And I wish I could remember the original source of this track, but it was through some sort of music sharing website or some sort of outlet in that sense. But this track is fucking amazing. I love this Kid Cudi track. This is like, if I wanted to play Kid Cudi for someone, I would play them this track. And for it to not have any home, officially, I guess it's never been put out on an album. I read that it was a potential B-side for Man on the Moon 1, but I'm like, it's too good. How has it not had any light anywhere? So that's really my reason for bringing it to the podcast. And I was curious, had you heard this song before? Surely you had.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and him and Dot the Genius, man, when they link up, they got a great relationship. Him producing for Cudi has always worked really well, and those two go together really well. And this is a dope song. It's very Dat Piff, MySpace, YouTube era of hot music. Hot new hip hop. Like, that's how you discovered it. That's how you listened to it. You downloaded it off of LimeWire after you found it. And that's kind of the old school vibe it has, but it's very, like, you can tell it's dated, right? Like, you listen to it, It sounds very old. It sounds very old school Cudi, but it's great in that sense, and like I said, a lot of, I think it would be great to, it would be a long ass episode, but it would be great to do Man on the Moon 1, 2, and 3 together, or at least Man on the Moon 1 and 2.
Too,
yeah. Just to, talk about that. But this, a lot of it is aged in a particular way, but this is still, it takes me back. All of those Man on the Moon 1 songs, anything around that era always kind of teleports me back to a time when I was a lot younger and listening to Kid Cudi a lot. And I feel like, look, Lil Wayne, Eminem, Jay-Z, the first artist I really got into, and Kid Cudi was the first artist I really, really felt connected to. And it's nice to kind of be teleported back to that time when that was the music that I really enjoyed and listen to on a regular basis, So great song. Funny. Hard rides.
So you say Wayne, Jay-Z, and Cudi. Yeah.
That's Eminem.
Eminem. Yeah. Can't forget him. Right.
Yeah,
but
of course.
mine is similar. It's Wayne, and then Wiz, and then Kid Cudi. Like those three for me, that trifecta I could never go wrong with. And like Wayne was my real eye-opening intro into lyrical rap. You know, Wiz was a more smooth kind of rap artist, and then Cudi is his own enigma. You know, and I think
Yeah.
that's why he'll forever, you know, have a space in my heart and head. So super stoked
Yeah,
to
100%.
bring us.
For sure.
All right, let's hear it.
Well, my track was Change in the House of Flies by Deftones. So I actually sent this to you and Jordan because it was on an American Dad clip, and it just made me want to go listen to it. And so I've been listening to it on repeat, man. Deftones, great. Change, this song is just, it's heavy, it's fucking dark, it's great, man. I love this song. So, and I need to push myself to listen to more Deftones, right? Like I need to listen to Around the Fur, and I need to listen to White
Yeah.
Pony, and just really dive into it and go front to back on those albums. But I love this song. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, this song is right up my alley. You know, I mean, the way that the Deftones they have this heavy beat, and then they kind of let a guitar riff ride out, and then bring the beat back. It's just so like dark and hypnotic and heavy, and yeah, it hits all the chords that I want it to. So yeah, when you sent me this track, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting all these vibes right now, and it feels so good. But yeah, admittedly, I haven't listened to a lot of Deftones either. I haven't listened to either of those albums. I haven't listened to this album, The White Pony. But I have this feeling, kind of like how I was telling you, you know, I have not seen Breaking Bad, but I know I'm going to love it. This has that same kind of vibe to me where it's like, damn, whenever I give it a chance, whenever I give it a true chance, right? And that's something, you know, I've always had this weird thing where like I have access to something and I know it's good and I know it's right there, but I just sometimes don't go right into it. You know, this used to happen a lot with Bass Sector albums. Like an album would drop and there would be this whole kind of like reaction from just, you know, the music scene, and I wouldn't listen to it, or I would wait a little bit to listen to it for whatever reason. I can't explain why. I used to do that with packages. A package would show up and I would just let it sit for like a day, just right next to the door, and then go and open it. You know, I don't know. It's some weird shit that I have going on in my head, but like, yeah, I just need to do it. I need to be forced to do it. So bring some Deftones to the podcast.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so now it's time, Anthony, to have a discussion. You know, we got to talk about this. So
The film
you
of the week.
you picked the film of the week, Good Time from the Safdie Brothers, starring Robert Pattinson. And you know, before I get into my spiel, I want to hear. Tell me why you picked it and your thoughts, initial thoughts, and then maybe upon a rewatch, if you rewatched it, I want to hear.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah! All right, so my discovery of Good Time came organically, which, if you don't know by now, that is like my favorite way to come across something. So I it was on Netflix at the time and watched it, and not knowing anything about this film, not knowing anything about the filmmakers, I was shocked at what I was seeing and kept wondering what could and would happen next. So like the intensity of a movie like this is such an adrenaline ride. There's so many like what the fuck moments throughout this film that just had me on the edge, and honestly had me cracking up. Uh, you know, I finally wrote a review for this movie, and this is probably at least the fifth or sixth time that I've watched it. And every time there's a scene, you know, that involves LSD, you know, towards the end of the film, that I out loud go, God damn, what the fuck? You know, like when it happens, it just like to have that happen consistently, even knowing what's to come, was just so powerful. And upon rewatching, there were so many things that I started to pick up. You know, how many nods there are to just the New York lifestyle. You know, there's buses, there's taxis, there's subways, there's accents, there's apartments, there's buzzers, you know, so much stuff that's so iconic to New York, right? Plus the stress, you know, just the constant movement. There's some cool shots on this throughout the film that are like, they're like drone shots, but it shows Robert Pattinson kind of moving around throughout the film. And it wasn't until the very end of this watch that it really gave me this mouse in a maze perception, of something being moving and still being trapped, even though you're in a
Yeah.
city, right? I mean, the whole movie
Yeah.
he's running away, right? But it's like it is such a ride that I was like, I'm so glad a movie like this exists because it is such an experience, right? Um,
Yeah.
and also, the first time I watched it, I had no idea who Benny Safdie was. I thought the actor who is Benny
Yeah.
Safdie, the character he portrays, I thought that was an actual deaf guy. I just had no concept of Benny Safdie. So like, but knowing him, I can imagine what your angle is going to be on his acting. But I was fucking thrilled with it. It has some cameos. Jennifer Jason Leigh does a great job, I think, of being just stressed and in the moment. And like I said, I was thrilled. And the film has a beautiful landing. This and Uncut Gems both start and end with like real serenity, real serene scenes. Like this movie opens up in a therapist's office, right? Benny
Yeah.
Safdie. And it closes in a I don't know what you would call it. It's like a group
therapy
rehabilitation.
session.
Yeah, group therapy
Yeah.
session where they're crossing the room, and it kind of leaves you on that feeling. So to have a film that's in capped with those types of feelings, but to know what the insides are like, where it's fucking just crazy, that's something I think that it takes a lot of a talent to put together, and they've delivered on a few different attempts. I mean, I've only seen Uncut Gems and The Curse, which is just really Benny and the other actor from I can't remember, but his brother Josh, I don't believe is involved in that. But either way, I think that they've figured out a way to carve a lane within films that is really it really speaks true to what they're trying to do, which is, I think, create an experience. So
Yeah. And like, this is my thing. The Safdie brothers, this is my gripe with this and with Uncut Gems, is they create anxiety for the sake of creating anxiety, but to me it never really feels earned. Like to me, like there's no sort of coherent plot. Like it's all over the fucking, like both of those movies are all over the fucking place to me. And like with Good Time, it's like, and you could say that that's almost like to their credit, that you don't ever really know what direction it's going to go in, and it's all over the place, but like it doesn't feel genuine. It feels chaotic in the sense that like they wrote themselves into a hole that they're trying to write themselves out of. Like that's what it comes across as to me. And like for Good Time and Uncut Gems, it just like it's repetitive to the point where the anxiety when you first watch the movie, it feels earned and like you're anxious, but then when it happens over and over and over again to the point where like it's like you're predicting, like like, oh, something fucking bad's gonna happen. Like, is it gonna really be explained? Is it gonna make a ton of sense? Probably not, but something bad's gonna happen. And like, to me, it just comes across as boring. Like, I think I gave it a 1.5 stars because like out of 5, because there are cool shots to it, but like I was bored watching it. Like, and here's the problem, Anthony. Like, between you and me, like I had a girl over and she was watching it with me, and I'm like, don't worry, my boy Anthony told me to watch this, and I trust Anthony. She fell asleep during the movie. She woke up and was like, tell your boy Anthony he needs to get his shit together because I can't even stay up for this movie. And like, I don't even blame her. I was just like, by the time that the movie ended, I was just ready to be out. I was like, just get me out, man. And I feel like they want, look, Benny Safdie, he did a good job as a character. He does a good job in Oppenheimer too.
yeah.
Which he's an Oppenheimer. But like, to me, I was like, let me tell you something, Anthony. I didn't like the movie so much that I Googled who their parents were because I was like, they have to have rich parents. Like, that's the only way they can get away with making movies. Like, that has to be it. And they don't. So I guess fuck me. Maybe I'm the one that's wrong and everybody else is right. But like,
Maybe.
I just don't, it's not my thing, man. It's not my thing. And like, it sucks because Robert Pattinson is great, and he's great in the movie too. And like he always has this sense of like he's on his toes, and like you can tell that things are spiraling out of control and he's losing control of the situation. But like it just took so many pivots to be that, like I said, like it doesn't feel like it's driven by any sort of coherent plot. And I feel the same way about Uncut Gems. It's like I don't know. It doesn't feel earned to me. And we've talked about this before in other movies that have created anxiety for us, which is kind of like the lane, like you're saying, that's the lane they've kind of driven themselves into. Like both of those movies are very similar in that aspect. But like there are movies that kind of give you that feel, like we've talked about this ad nauseum, but Midsummer, like Midsummer is the perfect example of that, of like an anxiety inducing movie that feels like it's way more slow paced, but it still feels very intense and very emotionally exhausting. Whereas I feel like the Safdies rely on this like constant like stream of information and this constant like jolting camera and all this shit's going on. And like to me, it just doesn't do it for me. Like I hate to keep going back to Uncut Gems, but like one of the scenes that really, when I really checked out of Uncut Gems, is leading up to the scene where they're trying to get the rock back, where Adam Sandler's trying to get his rock back. When they all come back,
Keep calling it a rock.
And they come back and they get locked in the door, right, and he can't get the door open. And I'm like, at that point, that's when I check out of that movie. I'm like, okay, you guys are intentionally doing shit like just to create anxiety, and it's not like you're trying too hard. It doesn't feel like it comes naturally. So, that's kind of my fresh my fresh take on those movies and my thoughts. So I'm sorry. Well, I know you're a big Safdie Brothers fan, and I wish I liked him. But I just don't, man.
Well, set and setting are very much influential with this. If you would have told me, hey, I'm going to have a girl over, what should I watch? This is not what I would have put on, right? I mean, you put on, Before Sunset or some other, lovey-dovey dreamy thing, right?
Yeah.
Or something pretty to look at. You put on Across the Spider-Verse, right? But this is a thrill ride. I think it requires your full attention because you're watching these characters who have nothing to lose, right? You have Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems he has a shit ton to lose. So his spiral is going in one direction. And Robert Pattinson in this film, I think he is just going to do whatever it takes. But what is his goal? What is his end game? I don't think he has an end game. And I think that's kind of the point of his character, is that he is just going to keep flying by the seat of his pants, grabbing a Sprite bottle full of LSD. What's he going to do with it? He doesn't know what the fuck he's going to do with it, but he's going to try to make something out of this, right? And I think that is kind of the mouse in a maze kind of vibe that I got from at least this last thing, was that there is no way out of this. And does he know it? Probably, but that's not going to stop him from still doing these reckless fucking things. But I think putting it on a screen where you see people do these things, where you can think, okay, what would I do in this situation? And obviously, or most people are not going to go in any of those directions that Robert Pattinson chooses, but he does. So then they can put that out there and say, watch this shit spiral out of control. And even though it's likely going to get out of control, I think it still takes these left turns and right turns that are unexpected. And I think it's unique in that sense. And yeah, it's going to be divisive. And I think you may have been a little biased going into this, with a little Safdie, Safdie on your shoulder, right? But in reality, I think it is a special movie in its own sense, right? And for it to still resonate with me, I think says a lot just for the film itself. Especially, like I said, knowing what's going to happen, it still is like a what the fuck kind of thing. But I would say give it another shot, but now I don't even know how possible that is. I mean, you gotta.
I always rewatch movies. I'll rewatch it. Even movies I don't like, I rewatch just to be like, oh, maybe I was wrong the first time. know.
I mean, put on the subtitles. See things as they're being said. I think that's a huge. That's a focus tool that I'll do sometimes. Especially on rewatches, is I'll watch a film with the subtitles on just to to get as much of it as I can, because sometimes dialogue is hard to be translated, right? And even they're speaking with mask on, in parts of the film.
Yeah.
A guy has his head wrapped in a cast. There's just some shit in there that just kind of like there's scenes like that catch you off guard, where you're like, what the fuck? Who is this? Where did this fucking guy come from? Where does this translate? So I think it's like you can't take your eyes off the screen kind of thing. But if you have moments that take you out of it, I think it's hard probably to jump back into it. Maybe that's a factor.
Yeah.
But
is the scene you were talking about the LSD scene where he dumps it on the guy?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like,
dude, it's so funny is when I watched it too and he did that, I think I literally was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, like when you know what a micro dot of that will do, and somebody goes, oh, he's not going to remember shit, and just dumps it, like there's no going back, right? There's no going back. And the actor
that shit terrified me to my core, dude.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that climax right there is so worth it, because even, like I said, even knowing what's going to happen, I'm still like, God damn, like, oh my God, like, this guy is fucked for life, And the actor does an amazing job playing that role. He's actually in The Curse as well. The guy who plays the security guard in Good Time, he's in The Curse. And he does a great job in that. So there's probably some ties with them, but The Curse is a whole nother ball game. I don't know if you would like The Curse. I would hope you would, but it's just
Benny, isn't it? It's just Benny's show.
Benny, yeah. But Dan Felder, I forget what show he does. It's a very awkward show. Fuck, I'm gonna look it up real quick, because it was on Comedy Central, and I remember seeing this show for the first time. I think his name is Dan Felder. Let me look up The Curse real quick.
Yeah, and maybe it's the Safdie Brothers together that's bringing it down for me. Nathan Fielder. Yeah, his show's hilarious, dude.
Yeah, Nathan For You is the show, right? So it's like this super situational, awkward comedy show, and it translates into this perfectly. And then you add Emma Stone, who does an amazing job. The whole concept of The Curse is like they're making a reality show. Ben Safdie is the director of the so-called reality show. It's like a home flipping show. And then you just start to kind of see different nuances of what does it take to make a show like that, or what might it take to make a show like that. So it kind of shines a lens on this different lane of Hollywood, I guess, for lack of a better term. But it has its moments that you're like, oh my God, what the fuck? What am I watching? But I enjoyed it. Like I said, I think that's a show that is for it. It requires a certain taste, or maybe a certain lack of expectation when it comes to this. It's just kind of you're just going to take it for what it is. You're not trying to look too deeply into it, and just let the filmmakers, let the directors kind of just take control and just see where it goes, see how it makes you feel. Because either way, I think like or hate Good Time, it definitely draws emotions, and I think that says a lot for a film to be able to do that. They don't lack on the adrenaline at all.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to watch it. Also, I need to shout out. I've been watching The Bear on Hulu. It's a show. It's a drama, but it's revolved around cooking. I think we mentioned it briefly, but I watched season 2, episodes 6 and 7. Man, some of the best television I have ever watched. Those 2 episodes back to back are phenomenal, and I'm very picky when it comes to television, but I'm telling you, these episodes were fucking great. So if you haven't watched The Bear, anybody listening, please watch it. And when you get to those 2 episodes specifically, watch them back to back and strap in, because it's a fucking ride. But man, really, really good. And and you know what? It's a fucking FX show. So FX continues to kill it. They're great at everything. All of their shows are fucking phenomenal. So just had to shout that out real quick. And you, Anthony, you should watch it as well. Put it on the list.
Right. So I've been told. So
yeah, I still haven't watched Breaking Bad. So you gotta. One
I
day,
know it's
one
like
day.
that's the thing. So like these quality shows start to add up, and then I think it just gets overwhelming, and I'm like, fuck it, I'll watch a documentary or something.
Yeah.
I'll watch Good Time again, you know. But
Yeah,
but either way, man, it's been a good conversation. So maybe the
for
bear. We'll see
sure.
what's up.
Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, next week we have a very, very, very special guest. We're not going to spoil anything. We don't have an album because
Ah,
we're letting them pick the guest or letting them pick the album. Anthony is picking the movie. Did you come up with one, or are you gonna wait?
no, I'm
You
gonna
gonna you
wait.
want to wait? All
Yeah,
right,
I'll text you, and then we'll drop it on the episode. But yeah, we'll see.
for
We'll
sure.
see. I mean, I would like if if any listeners out there have any suggestions of movies that you think Blake needs to listen, because this is all about educating Blake, right? We're
Yeah, true. That
trying to
was the whole basis
diversify
of the pod.
trying to
That was the
diversify his taste. So if you have any suggestions, let us know. But I'll do my best and come up with something good. So we'll see.
hell
Oh no,
yeah.
I got one.
All
Yeah,
right,
I do. I got one. I got one. Here we go. So I thought about this the other day, and now it's come back. So we'll shift gears from adrenaline rides and horror films to comedies, and what may very well be the best comedy film out there that has no human actors in it. It's a little movie called Team America World Police. Have you seen this, Blake?
okay. No, I have
Oh
not.
my God. Thank God. Here we go. I'm so excited. Um, I will just leave it at that. Team America, fuck yeah. So get
Okay,
ready for
hell
this. This is
yeah.
going to be good. And we'll let our guests
Strap
know to
in.
watch this too. Hell yeah.
Perfect. I'm ready for it. All right, man. It was fun as always. I will see you next week, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you guys
Beautiful.
later.
All right. Peace.